welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Denise Rolock Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and as you say, host of Let's Talk. We're here in my office, so pardon the mess, but this is what we do, and I'm getting ready. You see my little vote sign up there. Hey, we got an election coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the DMV. We got a great show for you this evening, so I'm hoping that you will stick with us. We were bringing on our team of talented storytellers, reporters, as we roll out some of the stories and the trending issues that are making a difference in our community and beyond. Joining me today are our star reporter, Stacy Brown. Hope he's with us, who will take us through some of the national issues, particularly those impacting the D.C. area and Washington, D.C. and specifically. Richard Elliott, who will be talking about Prince George's County schools, Prince George's County, the county races. The area is heating up, folks. We just went through a really interesting races in northern or in the state of Virginia, but particularly in Northern Virginia. So now get ready. Maryland, DC, it's heating up. So he's going to let us know about some of the legislation that's been introduced in Prince George's County. And Richard's also going to talk to us about the governor's race. And of course, we have our beloved, hardworking man, Sam P.K. Collins with us. He's our ace reporter on all things DC politics. And he'll be here to discuss what changes might be on the horizon for the DC public schools as well. And I know he has some exciting updates on who's throwing their hat in the ring for the mayor's race, the council races, the congressional races. It's getting hot and heavy right here in DC, y'all. So Sam P.K. Collins is on it. We're going to hear him talk about that. But before we get into our conversations, we want to make sure you pick up a copy of the most recent issue of the Washington Informer. If you can't get the printed copy, you can access the digital edition anytime here at WashingtonInformer.com. And while you're there, consider becoming, yes, thank you, Sherry. I have my paper, y'all. We still printing. It's getting tougher. And let me take a moment to just say that you all know that on our website and even in the paper, we do ask for your support. And I am so proud to say that so many of you all have come through for us. It's been a tough month. It's been a tough season. But I believe that, we're working hard to make sure that we continue to amplify the voices of our community, to make sure that our leadership hears what's going on in the community and that they respond to the issues that you have. And so that's our job as the press. But then as the Black press, to give residents that look like you and me the opportunity to express how legislation, how policy, all those things are particularly impacting our community. We consider ourselves the way of amplifying the voices of the Black community. And we've been able to do that because of the support, the donations that you all have been sending in. And I could not let another moment go by without saying thank you, thank you, thank you. But at any rate, if you haven't picked up a print edition of the Washington Informer, you can go to WashingtonInformer.com, and that's where you can also sign up to become a subscriber of the newspaper, and you can see also just kind of all the news that we print. If you subscribe, you'll get our e-newsletter, Win Daily, that comes out every day. Then we also have some other newsletters that we distribute throughout the week. But this is our baby, Win Daily. And all we ask for is your email address. That's simply it. Just type in your email address and you officially become a part of the Washington Informer family. We know you can always hear from us or connect with us through our social media channels. You can follow us on Facebook, IG, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV, where you can catch some of the Let's Talk episodes that you might have missed. So I am so honored to have, I love my team. I love my team. Despite all of it, these folks come through because we love you. We love the community. We love keeping you informed. And the champion, the leader of the team, is managing editor Misha Green. Misha, you there?
I am here. I like I always get emotional when you're saying such nice things. I'm glad you stopped.
No, hey, what do we say? We're trusted media, so you can trust that my words are true.
Yes.
You can trust that I'm not making stuff up. But this is a phenomenal team of, as Misha says, fearless journalists that I just am so honored to work with on a daily basis. So I'm giving you a shout out. This is true. And as we bring on our other reporters, I wanted to talk about actually a couple of people, Misha. We just, in December, early December, bid farewell to our beloved James Wright. Then we just had to join the family in funeralizing one of our former reporters, Aaron Markel Williams. And then, some of our community folks that we've loved and spent so much time with and supported, and they supported us. Ray Savoy, a pro golfer and cherished figure at Langston Golf Course, for boys and girls, who had a program. What is it? Guns, not golf, not guns, and giving scholarships away to young people in the area in golf. And then we just found out today, Pierpont Mobley, the husband, of our beloved. Why am I getting brain freeze?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeanette Mobley. Yeah, and we just had them. Pierpont just wrote his book about serving under so many presidents at the White House and what he did there. And we had him here. We did an interview with him. So, it's a sad moment to see so many of our beloved members of the community. And there are others that we can mention that I haven't, but those were closest to us.
Yeah, it's been a tough time, and when there's so much loss around you, which it has, been for us in many ways. When people have sent condolences, and then they go, "Gosh, you all have had it had a tough couple months," and we're like, "Don't remind me." But I think the bigger thing there is that it's reminded us of our purpose in many ways, why we wake up and do what we do every day. Um, and one uh, heartbreaking but also beautiful wake up call has been that how dedicated those people were to their craft.
Exactly.
And so it's almost inspirational for us to continue to do the work. And so all of those people, from Mr. Mobley to James Wright and Mr. Savoy and Markel, we miss them all. But we're going to keep on doing the work. And we didn't shout this out fully yet, but congratulations to the MLK Holiday DC Committee on a wonderful, wonderful celebration of the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But I was so fired up because you all reminded us that we can remember this great man's life, but in order to do it, we have to stay in the fight, and that the fight is still. And so, congratulations! It was really, really awesome. And of course, it's on the front of the Washington Informer this week, as well as we have a really expansive special edition on the MLK holiday in DC. And excuse my phone in the background, everyone. People want to reach us. They want to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up too, Misha, because I just got a text message a few minutes ago, and from one of the committee members who says, God always smiles on our parade, because it's in the winter, but
Yes.
winter seems to either come a day or two before, or as we are expecting this weekend, uh,
Right.
a week after. It raises its head and it brings down the wintry mixes. But we have been able to escape that to the fullest effect. And we had The committee is proud to say that there were over 3,000 participants in the parade. But then we also were grateful to see so many folks that braved the cold and came, stood along Martin Luther King Avenue, to celebrate. So many young people, that's what's inspiring about this whole event. The young people that are involved, and that's why it's done. That's why we do this, to keep Dr. King's legacy, at least to have give them something to talk about years ago. One other thing I'll just share about that is that there is a marker on Martin Luther King Avenue. The first Martin Luther King parade, Stevie Wonder rode in that parade. I did not realize until a week ago that the two young ladies that rode, of the two young ladies that rode with Stevie Wonder in his vehicle, was Wanda Lockridge.
No way.
She was Miss Anacostia at the
That
time.
is amazing.
Yes, yeah, I never knew that. And if you see the marker not far from Busboys and Poets on Martin Luther King Avenue, and there's a photograph, and you'll see her in that photograph. So, here she is, a community leader.
Yes.
It's and at that age, maybe 15 or 16, she never thought, she didn't know what she was going to do, and now she's a community leader. And that's how so many of these young people who participated in the parade over the years, that's where they find themselves today, in positions of leadership. And that's what this is all about, to share. Anyway, I had to share that. But let's move on with the show.
On with the show, as they say. Well, that's such a great story, and I think just a testament to, again, the work. Now, I think we have in the room with us somebody else who is on the ground doing a lot of work, but was also on the ground reporting for the MLK Holiday DC Parade. So he's not going to talk too much about that, but I think that's a great transition to bring our newly minted WI senior local politics and education writer, Sam P.K. Collins Jr.
How y'all doing? What's going on? Peace.
You weren't ready for that intro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I do think it's worth noting and celebrating. I mean, you've been such a great contributor and really leader amongst our staff for years, Sam. And so you all might have noticed a byline change. It really was only a byline change. He's been doing the work for quite some time. And I know you're here to talk to us about that. So thank you for being here. Now, how was MLK, just to wrap us up on that, for your experience?
There was a lot of love in the air on Monday, and I mean that quite literally. Everybody was quite jovial, despite the cold air. It just seemed that people were very prepared to actualize the legacy of Dr. King, which is rooted in love. And we saw a lot of campaigners. As you know, 26 is a very pivotal election year. So from congressional races, the mayoral race, and the down ballot candidates, everybody was on the ground just shaking hands, kissing babies, and just making their voices known. And I myself, I really enjoyed the musical selections. Me being a bounce beat aficionado myself, just walking up and down MLK, listening to the sound. So it was quite the occasion. And Nene Taylor of Harriet's Wildest Dreams, she summed it up most poignantly, I would say, when she talked about the parade in the context of community, seeing as it was something that she and her late brother, John Fitzgerald Cotton, it was something that they shared as youngsters. And this occasion was also something that for her reminded us about how Black issues are everybody's issues. So long before ICE was locking up everybody here and there, you had the slave patrols, which some people, or a lot of people, likened to the modern day policing apparatus. So, there was quite a lot to talk about on that day on both sides of the coin. And despite the cold, like everybody was quite happy. A lot of hugs, a lot of catching up, just a lot ahead for what's to come this year.
Sam, I wanted to. I mean, this is also another thought, but the mayor always comes with her team. This is going to be the last parade that she'll be participating in as mayor of the District of Columbia. Um, but when she came to the microphone, she reminded people of her work in Ward 8. I think you all know we've had conversations with her, and we told her no matter how much she does, folks will not always be satisfied. But just the fact that, there were 5 or 6 Black-owned businesses that were open that day down at the bottom, down in Anacostia. They're struggling, no question. They're struggling, but their doors are open. There's a brand new hospital, struggling, just lost its chief administrator, but she's been able to open that hospital. Did anybody talk about kind of what she considered are major investments east of the river?
Definitely. They do recognize that a lot of money has been poured into Ward 8. Just earlier this month, the DC Council approved the creation of the Soul of the City bid, which is on the other side of MLK, of course, but nonetheless, a lot of money is being poured into Ward 8. We see a lot of infrastructure. In addition to the hospital on the Congress Heights side, you do have DC Health that is not too far from where the parade took place. So in terms of what Mayor Bowser has done, not only has she poured money into infrastructure, but she has been very adamant about spreading DC government agencies across the city so that people can access them no matter where they are. And in addition to that, well, just focusing on that in particular, that allows for commerce because now you have DC Health personnel who are able to go to not only busboys and poets, but they're able to go to the other businesses that are along MLK and Marionberry Avenue. And in regards to the complaints that people are having, um, there are well founded, but at the very same time, we have to add context. So when you do have infrastructure, you still have to pay attention to um, the issues that are below the hood, so to speak. So in regards to the hospital and the low staffing numbers, that leads to that is in part the reason for the resignation of the CEO. You have quality of life issues that the next mayor can take on to build upon Mayor Bowser. That's not to say she hasn't done a wonderful job for Ward 8 because Reverend Motley, Anthony Motley, has acknowledged that just as much. If you read an article I wrote not long after she had announced her not running for re-election, Anthony Motley, the Reverend Anthony Motley, he acknowledged that a lot of money has gone into Ward 8. Just the other day, they unveiled DGS and DCPS. They unveiled the addition to Lecky Elementary. So now Lecky Education Campus now has space for teachers to collaborate. They have spaces that are age appropriate for the middle school. And they also have an addition that'll go into Fort Greble. So for those of us who are on that side, you have a lot to look forward to over the next couple of fiscal years.
This is a conversation for another time, but when you talk about the growth of these educational campuses, I was just having a conversation with someone recently that personally, when I moved on my block, there were 15 children that lived in houses on our block.
Mm.
Today, there are 2. So that's the whole education story we're going to look at. Population numbers are down, births of babies are not as high as they used to be. What is that going to do for all of this growth, that people are resources that we're putting into education for the few, who will be occupying these schools? But let's move on. We're going to move on. We're not going to talk about that right now. We are going to talk about this election that's coming up, and we also talk a little bit about what's happening with the council.
Yeah.
Well, I could start anywhere.
Well, I think just for what I'm interested in, again, just thinking about this week's paper, is that was a very fast and thank you turnaround on your Donnie Crawford reporting. Tell us about this, our new interim at-large council member, and then I know you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the race.
No question. So it was a quick turnaround. And for those, I'm hoping that the J school students are listening. But
Yeah,
when you have a beat, a lot of these stories don't cook up overnight. They are a product of having rapport with people in the community as well as people within the Wilson building. So the Donnie Crawford selection or appointment, I had caught wind of a couple weeks before, and the deliberations were still going, on, of course. But by January 19th, as I had explained in my story, a cadre of Black women organizers and leaders had already written a letter in support of Donnie Crawford, pretty much noting her work at the DC Fiscal Policy Institute, as well as noting what she had been able to do as a committee member, or like as a committee, yeah, a committee, not member, as a committee staffer, rather, in the DC Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. So by that time, so by New Year's Day, the list was 30 people who had reached out who wanted that appointment. By last week, it was about 42 to 47.
wow.
So out of all of that, the reason why Donnie Crawford, council member Donnie Crawford, got the appointment was because she had wide support among the council. Among most of the council members, she was either in their top 5 or their top 3. That was, and they spoke about her congenial nature. They spoke about her command of the budget, and just the fact that she would be able to connect the numbers with the real lived experiences and impacts of those numbers. Oftentimes, what some council members not necessarily struggle to articulate on the days, but what often gets disconnected. And another point that I want to bring up, as Chioma Iwoha of the DC Democratic Party, an at-large committee woman, what she brought up was that this is a council member here who, from now up until after June 16th, would be somebody that organizers would be comfortable talking to. They could talk to her, and they could know that she would listen to them and take in what they're saying. So now that Donnie Crawford is council member, she has hinted at a listening tour of sorts. If not a listening tour, then I guess some opportunity to speak to people across all 8 wards to make herself more known. And her priorities focus. She has designated her priorities based on her committee assignments. So youth affairs, transportation, public safety, and executive administration and labor. So we're talking about workforce development. We're talking about youth affairs and public safety, as far as just, as she said it, securing investments to ensure that public safety is in fact happening. Now, in regards to the recent appointment of the interim chief, Jeffrey Carroll, she did say that she wanted to sit back and see what the executive was going to do as far as pushing him as a permanent chief, or whether to leave that to the next mayor. And she also spoke out against masks as it relates to ICE agents. She recognized that that those masks are very unsettling, and she does want to sit in on hearings that may come up in the next few weeks around that. And she does want to weigh in on that, as well as on education policy.
Oh my goodness. So, I thought about somebody who just happened to be a council staffer now really having to engage with all 8 wards as a leader. I know that you'll be keeping a pulse on that, but speaking of education policy and the interim chief and some of the other things going on, there's a lot of course, the conversations about the Metropolitan Police Department's work or cooperation with federal agencies. The council is busy. What are some of the things we should be looking out for, just even over the next month or so?
No question. So, DC Council Member Brianna Doe, she compiled a report not too long ago that was inspired by a committee hearing she hosted last year. And that committee hearing was centered on whether MPD cooperation with ICE had incited DC human rights violations. Because her committee is not police oriented, but she looked at this whole situation through the vantage point of whether human rights were being violated. And in her report, she had pretty much suggested that Mayor Bowser rescind her mayoral order to sever that relationship or like that agreement, pretty much. So that's going to be something that's definitely going to be talked about over the next few weeks. We're also going to be looking at, in regards to what DRB talked about, this whole question of charter school proliferation. I spoke with leaders in the Ward 8 Education Council. There's concern that the two largest charter school networks in DC have a high concentration of schools in east of the river, which in their eyes limits choices about, quality of education. And in regards to the projected birth rates, there's also a question of, how can the public charter sector better leverage its resources to quell the opening of new schools and how they can better equalize that spread. Now we are going to be looking into budget season as well. The budget projections from the CFO's office, we did have a projected revenue increase. So there's a few $1 million that are being unlocked. Now it's just a question whether it's up to the executive or the legislative branch to try to figure out what to do with that. So right now we are going into agency oversight. We're going into budget oversight season. And depending on where the CFO numbers fall, there might be more than enough money to recoup the losses that took place last budget season with Alliance Healthcare, with emergency rental assistance, with housing in general. And so with at-large council member Donnie Crawford, crunching the numbers alongside her colleagues, there are a lot of questions around if and how the council can recoup those losses. But again, it depends on the CFO's projections as well as what DC Mayor Muriel Bowser is going to cook together for her last budget proposal.
And I know, speaking of, as Mayor Bowser says, the other MB, and the council, where are we looking in terms of this mayoral race? I know we're looking at several council members, not mayoral only, congressional race. There's a lot going on, but how do we look at our council members and how they're making decisions, and how does that sort of influence them as candidates, if that makes sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. So what we're looking at right now is the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
DC Council member Anita Bonds is not running for re-election. Brianna Doe of Ward 1 is not running for re-election. Zachary Parker of Ward 5 is running for re-election, of course, as well as Charles Allen of Ward 6. Councilmember Robert White is running for Congress. Janice Lewis, Georgia, Ward 4 is running for DC Mayor. So Ward 8, come March, depending on the outcome of DC Council member Trayon White's case, that can open up a whole nother can of worms right there. So depending on where the chips fall, we're going to be looking at an entirely new council for the most part. And what that means is that we can go either one of two ways. And if I could sum up the theme of this election season, I can take a quote from the honorable ancestor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Where do we go from here? So it's a question of whether we can maintain the status quo or whether we can go in a new direction. And I don't mean that tongue in cheek. What I'm saying is that the candidates who are running, some of them are touting their outsider experience, and others are touting their insider experience in the sense that with all of the knowledge from the elders gone, they see themselves best fit to keep the foot on the gas and to keep things very even keeled. Case in point, Kevin Chavis, former staffer for Anita Bonds, at-large council member, son of the father of the same name, who was a council member throughout the 90s and 2000s. So he really touts his legal experience. He touts his 4 years in the Wilson building, being able to calculate budgets and run committee meetings of that sort as an asset in keeping DC, as far as the budget is concerned, on the straight and narrow. And then you have other at-large candidates, Patricia Stamper, a former ANC commissioner. You have a former bond staffer, Laniqua Dominique Jenkins. You have Candace Tiana Nelson, formerly of the Ward 4 Democrats, ANC experience. She was also a staffer in Janice Lewis George's office, running the Ward 4 office. So a lot of that, with all of the races, and even with Councilmember McDuffie, former Councilmember McDuffie, and Janice Lewis George, again, of Ward 4. There's this this battle, as you would say, around where to take DC. Janice Lewis George is a bit more direct, right, in her criticism of the current administration. She's a bit more direct in what she wants to do. In my on-the-record talks with candidate McDuffie, he presents himself as somebody who's a bit more even-keeled, somebody who is a unifier. That's not to say the other candidate, Janice Lewis George, isn't, but as he told me on the record, he is looking at this from the vantage point of, once again, where do we go from here? Do we keep, the wheel steady, or do we take on, as he said, ideas from the outside? So in addition to those two, you also have other candidates, Yada Ford. Those who don't know her may remember the apartment building formerly known as Marbury Plaza. She represented some of those tenants who were going through issues. And she also represents, more recently, family of the late Deon K, who was killed by MPD not too far from the Informer office in 2020. And right now, that family is fighting with the Attorney General's office over that $600,000 judgment that the Attorney General's office does not want to give up. But nonetheless, Ms. Ford announced her candidacy, if I recall correctly, on Monday or Tuesday, but she did it officially in front of the DC Superior Courthouse, and she frames herself as a candidate for the people. We also have Gary Goodweather, who I'm further inquiring about. To my knowledge, he is the first candidate who hasn't had elected office before to unleash public campaign financing funds. So I want to see what's the story behind that. And we have Vincent Orange, formerly of the DC Council as well. He just threw his hat in the ring. Those who know Vincent Orange, they know him as a friend of business, and they also know him as a champion for DC Emancipation Day. That's the reason why we get to do the Dougie on, at Freedom Plaza every year, because of Vincent Orange. So shout out to him, as well as, man, the list goes on and on. It's going to be Rhonda Hamilton, housing advocate. I can't forget her. She's run for mayor quite a couple times as well. Grassroots candidate. At the height of the pandemic, she was on the ground, boots on the ground with residents who were paying exorbitant prices, allegedly for buildings that have not been updated for some time. So, she's definitely going to be in the race. But as has been discussed, March 18th will show us who's really with it. And I do have to acknowledge one more person, going back to at-large, Jacques Patterson. He did throw his hat in the ring earlier this year for the congressional race, which is also being that race. Now, to my knowledge, the incumbent, our Honorable Eleanor Holmes Norton, she has not announced, or her office hasn't announced, whether or not she plans to stay. But Councilmember Robert White is operating as though that's not going to be the case, as well as Councilmember Brooke Pinto. And again, there are some concerns about that.
And one of her staffers is running as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sam, we're going to try to get Stacy Brown and Richard in here. But when you were about to quote Dr. King, or when you quoted Dr. King, I thought you were about to quote former Mayor Sharon Pratt when she came into office, and at her inauguration, I think, what did she have, Misha? A shovel or a broom? One of them. And as I see the broom and dustpan behind you, Sam, I said, we get ready to sweep out the old and bring it up. So I thought you were about to quote her.
Yes.
That's a good one. That would have been nice. I'm not going to hold you. All right.
Love that. I don't think Stacy's in here yet. I know Richard is. I just have one more question. I wish Stacy was here because he reported on it, but no one's talking about it, Sam, from at least from the executive office or legislature. What's going on with the extension of the National Guard here in DC?
That's a very good question. I know recently there was some activity on Marionberry Avenue. As far as the extension, again, there's just some concern around the degree to which the executive is cooperating with federal forces. But to that point, and I can't speak necessarily about the federal, about National Guard, but as it relates to ICE and DHS, Mayor Bowser did encourage voters who are concerned about that to take their qualms to Congress. She made it known that it's really not in her hands. And as we saw, if I recall correctly, there was a bill that just went through the House. I think ICE got 10 billion out of that, so, but as far as the National Guard with that extension, there has been an effort over the last few months, people that have different takes on it. And as you'll see in my article coming up, there's an activist who came in a military family, and this activist, she had military experience before being discharged, and as she told me, that experience radicalized, but at the very same time, it provided some room for empathy as it relates to what a lot of these National Guards people are going through, some of whom are kind of young, right? Late teens, early 20s, and many of whom come from red states. So more than likely, they've taken on this job as a means to get up in the world, and here they are being thrusted, into something that's become very political. Now, that's not to excuse what the president is doing, but oftentimes we divorce the headlines and the paper, what's on the ink, from the lived experiences. And another activist who I spoke with had the same sentiments. And as a matter of fact, we saw tensions rise in the aftermath of the National Guard woman killing that took place near the White House. So there's a lot of concern around what's happening there, a lot of concern what's going to take place later on this year. I think I'm answering your question, but
no, it's
well,
given.
I just want to jump in and say that while the National Guard has been doing gardening work and what have you, which is not really what they were brought here to do, but we've got this big snowstorm. So those 2,500 National Guardsmen, I hope, or I suspect, will be out there shoveling snow as well. We've got a lot of seniors in this community that need access. So I'm just, I say that tongue in cheek, but that might be a part of.
No, you need to go ahead and just give them their marching orders. It sounds like.
Standing around is not going to work in 10 inches of snow. So pick up the shovels, brothers and sisters. Let's help out.
Yes. And it looks like Stacy Brown is here with us.
All right.
Yeah, this group was like a bit much for me.
Can we let's bring Richard in too, because I want to get him in.
Yes, love that.
I mean, you got Sam, who is probably the best journalist on the East Coast, if not national.
Oh, man.
Yes.
And then you got probably the best managing editor that there is, and of course then there's Denise, who wields the hammer, and now we're gonna bring in Richard, who is he is one of a kind for sure.
Yes,
for sure.
My man Richard,
and Stacy Brown,
and myself, just like who likes to hang out with smart people like y'all.
Yes. Well, now, Stacey, we were just talking about, thank you for your coverage as always, and this week of the National Guard extension. To my knowledge, as we talked about yesterday, I think you're one of the few people that has reported on that. You've seen it actually more in other states like Arkansas, because that's where these new troops or some of the troops have been deployed from. And so, but tell us a little bit about this, and we don't want to leave you out, Richard, because you've been doing so much, and so we'll get to the so much that's happening in Prince George's and Annapolis. But Stacy.
Yeah, so first and foremost, when you talk about being one of the only ones who have reported on this, I thank two really important district people. That is the AG, Mr. Swab, and of course Eleanor Holmes Norton, her staff. Regardless what people say about her, her staff is as sharp as they come, and they give out this information to those who want it, and I want it, and they know I want it. So there you have it. But the scary thing about that, obviously, we saw back in August when they started deploying into the district in July, August, and we know that havoc. August 11th.
Yeah.
It was very disconcerting, and they wasn't. Let's put it this way: it was very disconcerting, but it wasn't ICE, and that now with the specter of ICE everywhere and joining, and you got other states sending National Guard to the district specifically. It's really scary knowing that this is not just about immigration. This is about what people saw in Germany back, and whose time. And this is about controlling. You have in this country now state-run media pretty much now. You have the armed troops, paratroopers going into a city. And so the district being predominantly Black, run by a Black woman, is always going to be, it has always, and I know Mayor Bowser is bowing out, no pun intended, but it's always going to be a prime target. And so I've been keeping my eye on that. And so when I heard that they were going to extend it, we needed that story, and our readers needed to know about it.
Well, let's talk about, just because we keep saying extend it, but we're talking about extending through the end of 2026.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing National Guards on the ground, National Guards, men and women on the ground in the District of Columbia through the end of this year.
Correct.
Through the end of 2026, at least. Yeah. You can count on it, Denise, Misha, being there as long as Donald Trump is in office. There is no indication. Now, there are supposed to be limits on how long you can deploy them. But of course, there is no limits to how many limits this administration will break. Right. So I wouldn't count on DC. This is new DC. This is new America. You're not going to see DC now without the National Guard during this administration.
Wow. Oh, goodness. Well, we appreciate, again, the pulse, the fact that these staffers want to give you the information, Stacy, and, thank you for always tying it back in. And I encourage our readers to note that even in Stacy's national coverage, to how it's affecting district residents. And
everything affects the district. Everything. We can't do nothing nationally without it affecting the district somehow.
Yep.
Stacy, you also, well, I don't want to go into jobs, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, if time permitting. But just like Sam talked about, some of the members of the DC Council who are stepping, out of their seats and not running for re-election, including the mayor. Other members shifting to other positions. We're seeing that on the Hill, and Richard, we're also seeing that in the state of Maryland, where people are. I'm pointing back to Sam's broom and dustpan back there. That folks are sort of kind of dusting themselves out the door and opening up opportunities for others. So we've got some big elections coming up across the DMV. And of course, the other part is, do folks really even care? Are they going to vote? But I want to jump into the state of Maryland. Richard, can you talk a little bit about all the activity that's happening out there on the political side?
Sure. Most relevant for people's day-to-day lives, the governor introduced the first proposed budget. He's refusing to do any tax increases, any fee increases. So they're cutting $1.5 billion from the budget currently. This has been warned about, I'd say, going back to at least November or October of last year. And following last year's cuts, there's not very much that they can cut. So a lot of it will be coming out of state agencies, such as the Department of Natural Resources, for example. The governor announced his housing agenda. He wants to make minimum lot sizes, get rid of that concept, to emphasize transit-oriented development, and to make it easier for state land to be turned into housing. The governor and his housing and community development director, Jake Day, the former mayor of Salisbury, they are absolutely aiming to increase the housing supply in Maryland in order to make it more affordable. In Prince George's County and kind of in the local delegation, there have been a lot of different changes that have happened over the past several months. I'm going to try and say them all, and I might forget some of them. Ingrid Watson resigned recently, and she is going to lead the Economic Development Corporation. There is an appointment later today in about 3 hours and 10 minutes for replacing that seat. And if you want to win some easy money, bet Tim Adams of Bowie is going to win that seat. The council member at large, Calvin Hawkins, resigned to get a economic development job. And Walla Bligay, who is now running for Congress, was appointed to that seat. Danielle Hunter, who was the director of county appointments for Aisha Brayboy's administration, was appointed to Bligay's former seat. There was the resignation of Delegate Jazz Lewis to go and lead the Department of Government Relations at his alma mater, the University of Maryland, College Park. There is an expected resignation of another council member, but that's, I'll just say, a rumor. And if Tim Adams is appointed to be the mayor of Bowie, there will be a special election for the mayor of Bowie, and then presumably another special election for the Bowie City Council. So to say musical chairs would imply the music ever stops, but there have been a lot of resignations, a lot of appointments, and a lot of moves, and they have helped to consolidate the Brave Boy administration and give her, like she said in her announcement address, a good working relationship with the Board of Education, with the county council, and with her county government administration.
And Richard, in terms of Annapolis, because you were one of the first people, if not the first, to report on the new leader of the Maryland House. And so what can we expect from House Leader Pena Melnick, as well as what are some things to look out in Annapolis? I know you talked about the governors, but what should we be looking out for?
Delegate Pena Melnick was the longtime chair of the health committee in Annapolis for a lot of the changes that our state did for COVID, for example, making sure that vaccines would be free, that testing would be free for a long period of time. She was responsible for that. She's also shepherded the Prescription Drug Affordability Board. She would be, I would say at the very least, a liberal, but I would say at least somewhat of a progressive within the Democratic Party, and has received widespread praise, not only from her Democratic colleagues, but also from a lot of Republican members of the General Assembly who trust that she will respect their voice. To that point, she created the Rural Caucus, which includes Democrats such as Cherie Sample Hughes and Matthew Schindler from from Hagerstown, but is majority Republican committee. She has been largely lauded across the aisle in media, etc. I have a wonderful opinion of her. And what are some of the things that she is doing? There is going to be a vote on the redistricting map that was proposed by the commission in coming days. And I expect that to go through her newly created Government, Labor, and Elections Committee without too much of a breeze.
You know, one of the things that, one of the issues, Stacy, that you've written about that crosses boundaries, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, is this whole issue of employment. I mean, we've heard the stories about the 300,000 Black women who've lost their jobs in the federal government. We now are looking at a 7.6% unemployment rate among Black Americans. And as folks, I've heard people say, you know, again, we are the temperature. Black people are the temperature for the nation. Yeah. And so what happens to us ripples to impact other people. But with all these, you know, changes, these politicians, folks running for office, what have you, I mean, what are the issues that you think will get people actually to come out and vote besides an anti, for some, you know, an anti-Trump vote?
Well, first and foremost, if you're going to vote and you vote for the guy, then something's wrong with you. You got to be. But I would encourage people to look at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies State of the Dream 2026 report that details what you just said with the Black unemployment and unemployment across the board. The alarming stat, Denise, and I know you have always expressed concern, and you hire people who are very young. Um, the Black youth unemployment is 30%. So these are issues that I think people will be taking into account. Even, we know that you had folks like Chicago Flips Red, a Black organization, Vote Red. And even those folks, now they're in what folks are terming the FAFO mode now, or phase. And even those folks are now, I think, motivated to change things already. So it's been a year, but it's been.
Stacy, what?
No, you don't want to know, Denise. This is a family program.
Okay.
Mess around and find out. How about that?
Okay.
But I think certainly the economy and jobs. There are so many higher educated folks, 4-year degrees, 6, 8-year degrees, PhDs are coming out and not getting the jobs that used to be there for them with that type of a degree. And of course, speaking of higher education, you know that the former administration was working hard to forgive student debt. This administration is doing the exact opposite. They are punishing those who have student debt.
Right.
And so these are the issues among the obvious, right? The ICE situation, seeing what's going on, militarizing our communities, the fact that the president and his family has made in 1 year off the presidency $1.6 billion in personal income. These are the issues that every time I talk to someone, it comes up.
I don't know. I think we saw this before the last election, but I think the Democratic candidate lost focus and focused on a few things that folks just said, this is not our issue. Not that abortion is not an issue that impacts Black America, but I don't know if Black America thought it was as important as jobs, right? And so, it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of know where Pence is going to come from if he runs on the Republican side. But who are the Democratic candidates? And there have been a lot of conversations about who some of those people were, including Governor Wes Moore. Folks still want him, Richard, to run for president.
And
so
he keeps saying no.
Let me add an important note. You can certify this. When Larry Hogan announced, I think it was 2 days ago, that he was not running for governor, Wes Moore is winning re-election. Wes Moore is going to get 64% or so of the vote.
Yep.
The Green Party candidate might break 5%, but it is Wes Moore's Maryland. It is now squarely, and I mean squarely, at the feet of Governor Moore to come up with the most innovative solutions possible to bring economic development and to bring jobs, because this is I would almost say, a severe economic crisis before the economic depression has even hit. But we have seen some positive developments. We've seen the Sphere project that's being proposed for National Harbor. There's still the possibility of the Six Flags and the Commander's sites being used. And like I said, the governor's trying to turn, I think it's like 300 acres of state land into housing, when right now it's just kind of sitting and the state has to maintain it. So there are some ideas being leveled that can generate some amount of economic activity, development, and jobs. But we're somewhere where the traditional solutions of bring in big business or revitalize malls or do infrastructure improvements to create jobs, those are not solutions in this environment. They're Band-Aids, perhaps. So it will require some truly innovative thinking, and my prayers are with the governor to find it.
Speaking of...
well, that's to answer your question too, and Richard, that was great because it gives you another insight into why Wes Moore is not running. But the front runner, without question, just to be real brief, Denise, is Gavin Newsom right now. If you had to say a front runner on the Democratic side, it would be Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I'm hearing people already saying saying why he should not be the candidate. But
Mhm.
having said that, Sam, before we close, and we're talking about innovation, and one of the stories we're not hearing a lot of is that with all of these, government agencies, corporations that have shut down in the District of Columbia, we've ended up with these empty buildings. It's my understanding that the mayor has now launched or opened her ninth building in downtown DC. I think there's a word that she calls it for this, how these buildings have been, what do you call it, converted from office spaces now into residential spaces. I don't know if that's considered falls in the bucket that you're talking about, Richard, with innovation, more so necessity. But who's going to move into those places? Has she talked about that at all? Sam, I don't know if he's distracted.
He has talked about that. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here. I turned on my mic. So there's there's been conversation around that for a couple of years now in terms of well, first of all, during the Gallery Place task force deliberations, there was conversation around those downtown conversions. That's what they're called, because of the fact that between remote work and between the federal government pretty much hemorrhaging jobs, that these buildings were going empty. And the idea was that eventually, with residents moving into these buildings, that the district can create more entertainment districts where entertainment and family life would not be consolidated in only a few places. So in terms of the larger vision, what the executive and the legislative, to some degree, what they're looking at is creating hubs throughout the city where families can, within walking distance, go to the dry cleaner, where they can enjoy a show, where they can do several things. And in terms of the office to residential conversions, the one that happened recently is the largest, since the mayor started this. So what we're looking at right now is an effort pretty much to, I wouldn't say move away from dependence on the federal government, but it is sort of like a pivot to find other revenue sources and other ways of shaping the district. Because for the longest time, downtown has been a hub for people who have a relationship with the federal government. It hasn't really been something where locals, to some degree, were necessarily engaged with. So as we are looking down the line at this, affordability does become an issue. And the council, I don't want to butcher this necessarily, but a couple of years ago, there were votes around around the number of years that new tenants would have to wait before exercising their TOPA rights on new buildings. So if by any chance that tenants living in these new buildings wanted to exercise their TOPA rights, they would have to wait, at least a decade or so to do so. So the affordability issue is still around there, as is the case no matter where you live in the city. But Mayor Bowser, Deputy Mayor Nina Albert, they said that the higher the housing stock, the more you can abate housing unaffordability, if that makes sense. So that's what they've been tackling, pretty much, expanding the housing stock in DC. Now, whether it'll drive down prices, that's yet to be seen, but that's the philosophy.
Sam, let me add in an important note for the future. For public housing, during the Clinton administration, they got rid of the rule that for every public housing unit torn down, that you've had to build another. So the rise in housing costs is not only because luxury housing is built, it's not only because wages are going up, but it's also because there is so much less publicly subsidized housing that people can live in relative to in the 1990s or 1980s. And I have not really heard much of a democratic agenda on either the state, local, the federal level, or the local level to reinforce the public housing that existed in the decades of yore.
Good point. And that ties in. That's why I brought it up. It ties into the employment issue, and it ties into the word that I've been hearing so much about over the last 3 months is affordability. That's what everybody seems to be concerned about: affordable housing, affordable education, affordable food, affordable healthcare, affordability seems to be the big item this year. And with this new Geneva hotel residence that's open, Sam, is 532 units that I read, and 60 of them, Richard, are supposed to be affordable, whatever that means. I think we're done unless somebody wants to jump in with something else. I'm excited about doing this on a monthly basis. I hope that our viewers will send us at news, NEWS, at WashingtonInformer.com, any issues that you would love for our team to really dig deeper in, so that we can discuss this on shows coming up monthly throughout the year. But again, send those comments, those questions, anything you have, even about the politicians, send it to news at WashingtonInformer.com. Misha?
I'm just so thankful for you all being with us today. It has been a great conversation. And again, when we've had so much loss in here recently, just seeing you all's faces makes me so happy. I encourage folks not only to subscribe, make sure you are tapped into all the newsletters, but you all know what I say, sharing is caring. So share this stream, share what you're reading, share the paper after you're done, pass it on to a friend or tell somebody to go get it near the closest store to them. And most importantly, be safe this weekend. We know a big snowstorm is coming our way. At least that's what they forecasted. I saw a meme that said in DC, sometimes the weather forecast should just be, it might snow.
But Misha, don't buy everything out of the store. Save something for someone else. It's not going to be like a week long or a month long
I can
or
tell
a year
you,
long
Stacy
thing.
Brown, Washingtonians don't listen to that. I went to the store yesterday and it was already a zoo. I tried to get blueberries and they were gone. I'm like,
they're gone.
Y'all eating all the fruit for this snowstorm?
The apocalypse.
Look, we'll take it. Healthy choices. But again, it is 2026. We promise it'll be fixed in 2026, at least that we're going to keep a pulse on how folks are trying to fix things in 2026. And so go to the Washington Informer for all the news that you can use. DRB, take us home.
Well, that's it. I just want to say thank you all again for joining us for another edition of Let's Talk. Misha said it all. Thank you, team. I wish I had a phone number so you could call the National Guard in case you need some help getting that snow shoveled. And also, if you know some places that have snow remover, share that with your family and friends. Don't go buy it all. You're talking about food, but we're talking about that stuff you put on the
ground.
Yes, right. We'll hoard that, But at any rate, thank you all for being with us. And this is it for one last thing. Since you will be snowed in case if it does snow and you'll be snowed in, go to our YouTube channel. You can watch all of our old shows, all of our previous shows.
Binge watch.
You'll learn so much. Yes, binge watch on Let's Talk and some of our other lives. Great having you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
I appreciate y'all. Much love.
Yeah.
Where do you come to get